This is Dianne Andrews in Black and White. The issues you don't want to talk about. The arts and entertainment you need to know. And now here's your host, Dianne Andrews.
Welcome to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. And I'm your host, Dianne Andrews. Thanks very much for tuning into us today. I hope you're one of our 3 million viewers out there in TV land, down in New Orleans, Lafayette, Shreveport, and all over to the western part of Mississippi. We're in about 3 to 5 counties over there. So we appreciate your viewership, and I know you keep watching because I hear some people tell me when I stop in different locations, and I appreciate that. We hope to bring you the things that you want to hear and to see that help you become a better person, because I know doing this show has made me and helped me heal in a lot of ways, and it's helped me become a better person. And that's what Dianne Andrews in Black and White is all about. As we start this show, we're going to do 2 segments of this show. One about a healthy heart, and that'll be with 2 cardiologists. That'll be the second part of the show. But sitting with me today is a very good friend of mine, Marcel Reid. Thanks for being here, Marcel.
Thank you for having me.
This is my girlfriend here. Marcel flew in from Washington, D.C. last night to be in the show, which is where she lives. Marcel and I met when I was writing my second book, Gumbo for the Heart, which has 25 vignettes in it about people of courage, about peace, about love. It has Senator Bill Cassidy, the Louisiana U.S. Senator, is in this book. Warwick Dunn is in this book, the ex-football player, when his journey, how his mother was gunned down, when she was a policewoman, about love, the story of me and my mother, and just a peace ambassador to South Africa is in the book. So it's at Barnes and you can buy it on Barnes and Noble's online, and of course on Amazon, as all books are. But when I looked at a person back in 2008 and 9, I think it was, there was a lot going on about ACORN. And people may remember that because it was headquartered out of New Orleans, Louisiana. And that was Association of Community Organizers for Reform Now. Marcel was the former ACORN chair. She is also the co-sponsor of the Whistleblower Summit that I speak at every year in Washington, D.C. on civil and human rights. And Marcel has also been on the board for Pacifica Radio and worked with Whistleblower Protection Acts, I think. We want to know, though, what else have you been doing? Marcel is such an interesting and involved person. So what else? Tell us about, back in 2000, I will ask you this one question. In 2008, when our current president about to go out 8 years ago, there was all the bailout money was being given for various things. ACORN, Nancy Pelosi and Bernie Franks at the time said that they wanted 20% of the bailout money to come through ACORN. Were you aware of that, and what did you think about that as you were the chair of Washington, D.C. ACORN, and Virginia and Washington, I think you were the chair of at ACORN?
I was unaware of that at the time. I did know that we were going back and forth to the Hill frequently because of the location of ACORN in Washington. I was often on the Hill negotiating with legislators. I did not know about the 20% at that time, but I did know that I had asked to see the books, and I had been speaking to funders regularly. And when I spoke to funders, they were writing us checks, but every time I went to my local ACORN office, we never had any money at all. And so I would...
Now, you all got monies from these poor people in the community, grassroots. They paid $10 a month to be a part of ACORN, correct?
Yes.
$120 a year.
Yes.
What did they get for that? And we're talking about poor people.
Yes.
What did they get?
They got to see an organization that they loved and believed in, and a mission that they believed in.
Which was what, Ms. Reid?
And the mission of ACORN was to help the disenfranchised people, the people on the margins of society, participate in a meaningful way. What I often talk about is the J-curve when I'm trying to explain it. And the J-curve is that people at the very top of society know immediately when they're being mistreated. because they've been treated well. People at the bottom of the J curve have no idea when they're being mistreated because they've never been treated well. So that's
So it's
why
normal to them. This is a part of their mores. This is the way they
it's normal. And so people at the top of the J curve are always unhappy and offended. They're easily offended. And they're offended because they know to be offended. People at the bottom of the J curve have no idea of when they're being mistreated. So that's why you go into some communities and you expect prompt service, a salesperson to come over to help you as opposed to monitor you. But very poor people don't know that.
Do you believe that ACORN helped people? Because you were the lead on ACORN 8 who really sued or whistleblew on ACORN. So tell me what made you whistleblow.
Because the board had been negligent in its responsibilities, and that's because the board had been seated with people who did not understand the function and purpose of a board. A board is in place to protect the foundation or corporation. It is not there to encourage corruption. It is there to correct corruption when it sees it. But you have to have people on the board who understand their fiduciary responsibilities. And if you bring people onto a board who are just happy to sit on something, just happy to be recognized, because they've never been recognized, then it's very easy to manipulate them.
Is that the kind of people that were on your board?
Many of the people on our board, yeah. But we did have attorneys on board. Karen Inman was an attorney, and she was the woman that helped co-found ACORN 8 with me, and she was
which is the whistleblower organization, which is how I met Marcel. She was on Fox, CNN. You were on TV all the time. When I was doing the book, I said, I want to get this woman because she has a lot of courage to go out here and fight an organization as big as ACORN was. How big was it then?
There were over 400,000 members. They were located in almost all of the states. And it had many, many branches throughout all of Washington, D.C. So after bringing this stuff forward with ACORN, I did spend 2 or 3 good years.
You were there 10 years, a decade, right? With ACORN.
Yeah, I was with ACORN almost 10 years. Not quite, but almost 10 years.
Would you do it again? Would you whistleblow on an organization like that?
I can honestly say I didn't know what whistleblowing was.
Tell the audience what it is.
Whistleblowing is when you tell the truth at great personal risk. It is not after you leave the job. It is while you're on the job. It is not a disgruntled ex-employee. It is a current employee who's absolutely playing with their livelihood and their family's livelihood by telling the truth. People confuse this, and they're always looking for a legal definition of a whistleblower. I was a whistleblower because I was chair of ACORN at the time in Washington, and my board stood behind me. I could not have done it without my board. And we saw corruption, and we reported corruption, and we tried to fight it from inside the organization because I love ACORN's stated mission. I would always join that stated mission.
But the problem is the stated mission was not reality.
Was not reality.
Yeah. And the founder's brother ended up embezzling money from ACORN, right?
He embezzled money from very poor people. They hid it from
Wade?
Wade's brother.
Yeah.
Embezzled money. Wade's brother embezzled money, and very poor people don't have anything. The only thing very poor people have is their honor and their hope. And anyone who takes both honor and hope from poor people should be stopped immediately. They don't have they don't have power. They have their honor and their hope.
Now, would you do it again?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I didn't know what a whistleblower was, and that's what I was saying very quickly. I didn't know what a whistleblower was. I didn't know what it involved. I foolishly had been raised, you know, like everyone else.
Well, Mike McCrae, who was he's co-founder of the Whistleblower Summit, and he's also was part of ACORN 8, who whistleblew on ACORN. I had him on here, and he's an attorney, a CPA. We call him the most educated person we know. He's got about 10 degrees, and so there's a show out there on YouTube with Mike also. But he had whistleblown, and we talked about that. You really start just trying. You go to your boss and say, "Hey, I found this problem. You know, we could be buying this for $10 instead of $1,000, right?" But not knowing the boss may be a part of something that gets part of the kickback for buying whatever this apparatus is. And so then you got to shut that person down because they know too much. It's almost like that, isn't it?
I think whistleblowers basically are people who are not cynical enough to understand that this is the way the system works to hurt people on the edges. You're just not that cynical. So you believe foolishly that by telling the truth, everything will be all right, because I was raised to believe if you told the truth, everything would be all right. It would work itself out. What I'm here today to tell you is telling the truth may very easily destroy your life. And no one wants to hear that because it's a simplistic answer. You just tell the truth, everything will be all right. Everybody understands the truth wins out. Unfortunately, 9 years after blowing the whistle, and working with hundreds of whistleblowers, and their lives are blown apart.
They really are. I've been to several of the summits. This will be the 6th coming up in 2017.
In 2017. This will be the 6th summit.
The people that you hear, I mean, they just want somebody to listen and try to help. How do you help me? Because they're at their wits' end.
Yes, because they all believe naively that telling the truth was enough. I would like to say very quickly, because I know you have a couple of cardiologists coming on later, that there's an organization that was formed for medical whistleblowers called the Semmelweis Society of Doctors Who Told the Truth as Semmelweis did. He wound up in a mental institution dying there because he talked about germs being transferred from one person to another.
This is back in the 1800s, before antibiotics.
Well, there's a group of doctors who were trying to tell the truth, and they find that when they go up against the American Medical Association, when they go up against the American Bar Association, that their lives are blown apart. They lose their licenses. They no longer practice.
So would you think you all won with ACORN 8? Would you say, because ACORN 8 has, the name has changed, is that correct?
Yes.
But they're still around.
They're still around.
And are they still charging people $10? The grassroots people?
I don't know that. But I do know that ACORN was the association of communities, and what I've always told people is just a shell corporation. It was just
a 504 or 501c4, which you don't find many. That was very smart, the way they organized that.
Very smart. And then later on, other groups tried to become 501c4s, and that's why you had all the back and forth with the IRS about it. But at the time that they were doing this, there were 3 or 4 501c4s.
Because it allows you to get into politics with the 501c4. As a 501c3 charity organization does not allow. That was very smart on Wade. Wade's part, the founder of this.
Wade was a brilliant man, and he always disarmed his competition by walking in a room, and the first thing he would do the all shucks routine, and then he'd almost kick the ground and have hay in his mouth, and then he'd say, well, I never finished college. And the minute he did that, they would feel superior.
He disarmed people.
They were disarmed.
They were disarmed.
And then he would cut them to the ground.
Right.
But they didn't know that at the time. They were resting on the fact that they were degreed and he was not.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing today? We have about another moment.
Okay, so we work with whistleblowers now. I work with whistleblowers across the country. I've been working with a group of firefighters from the USDA from the 5th region, which is California. And there were a group of women who were being systematically sexually harassed. Some had been beaten, some had been raped. They had been left alone in forest fires. And these were women that are not normally sympathetic, because you don't think of a 6-foot woman that will jump out of a plane into a raging forest fire as sympathetic. Wow. You can now go and look these women up on YouTube. And there was an oversight committee hearing on December 1st of this year. It took 5 years in the offing to discuss why these whistleblowers had been talking about the USDA for nearly 40 years.
We got about 30 seconds, Marcel. So
Okay, so I would tell people to go to our website, whistleblowersummit.com.
Order your copies now of Dianne Andrews' latest books, Third Man Out, a suspenseful mystery by Dianne Andrews, and Gumbo for the Heart, 25 stories of faith, hope, and charity, both available now on Amazon.com.
Thanks for coming back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. As you know, I've been doing some shows on medical malpractice, done some things even talking about whistleblowing in medical malpractice. And today I'm very honored to have two very distinguished doctors with me, two cardiologists. One as a female that I'm very proud to say is the only Black female in the state of Louisiana.
Thank you.
As a cardiologist, and that's quite an accomplishment. She came to Baton Rouge, Dr. Cardell Paris, by way of Trinidad, and from Trinidad she went to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, then she went to New York, the Big Apple, and then she came down here to the Big Stick. So now she is in the area for our underserved community for the last 10 years. In Mid-City Baton Rouge, and has been in Baton Rouge about 13 years practicing at one time over near Our Lady of the Lake Hospital, the biggest bedded hospital in the state of Louisiana. So I want to thank you for being here, Dr. Paris.
Thank you.
As I was reading her bio and the things and her accomplishments that she's done, her mother died of not blessed, was unblessed to have a bleeding stroke, but she is still alive. Then she had a neighbor who had a stroke also. Was that part of the reason that you decided to go into this discipline in Trinidad?
Mm-hmm, that's right, in Trinidad.
But let me tell you, when I was reading this guy that she just brought in here, Dr. Joseph Toussaint.
Yes.
Another West Indian by heritage from New York City.
Correct.
Who, I was reading this, I said, oh my God, this guy is bad. And as you know, that's the word we use. He's got 3 boarded from internal medicine to interventional cardiology to cardiovascular medicine. I started reading, I said, what is endovascular? So I'm smart now, I know what it is. You use a catheter with medications in it, he'll explain, and that's the breadth of my knowledge of it, but I did read that last night so I could interview you. Thanks for being here from New York. Went to SUNY Medical School, and then you went to Weill Cornell, is how you, Weill Cornell or Weill Cornell, for your residency.
Correct.
Quite an accomplishment, you two pair together. You're in Denham Springs also. You just got an office there in Denham Springs. So tell me about, the heart is a muscle. We know that it carries the blood, which carries the oxygen and the nutrients around the body. And it sits in the middle cavity. And I just found out that our left lung is smaller than our right lung to allow for the heart. Now, you all take it from here. Tell me about the heart and what you're doing.
Well,
but I do have to say this before. Sure. Dr. Paris was just honored by the Links Association at a luncheon. All right.
Thank you. The cardiovascular system is the most important organ. It is the only organ that actually keeps you alive.
Yeah.
We know that most people feel that the breast, a lot of breast cancer survivors, breast organizations are out there, but the cardiovascular system is the most important.
Because this is what we see, but this is what's working in here.
People get worried of what they see, but it's like the engine in the car. You need to fix the engine, you need to keep it working, you need to make sure that all the pipings, etc., is working properly.
And heart disease and cardiovascular, which is CVA or stroke, are the #1 killers globally. And in America, 610,000 die a year.
#1 in the United States as well.
Right, and for women, it's #1 also.
Well. #1 for women.
Yes. So, Doctor, tell me what you're going to bring, or what you have brought in the last 2.5 months to this practice.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm an interventional cardiologist and have other special training in endovascular medicine. And we're here to save hearts and save limbs in the Mid-City area.
Yeah, tell us about the limbs. I thought that was very interesting.
Sure. So, one of the things that plagues a lot of underserved patients, and especially African American patients, are limb loss. And I'm sure we all have relatives that have lost toes or lost their leg, and
my mother had to have an amputation.
Right. Say, oh, they have really bad diabetes or really bad peripheral vascular disease. And a lot of times
there was no flow, as you all say, right? No flow down to no flow. That's right. PVD, peripheral vascular.
That's because they may not have had access to care, or they may have access to care, but someone didn't care for them.
Yeah.
And
Well, neither case in my mother, she got hit by a car walking.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But what we can do nowadays, if we're monitoring for signs and symptoms of peripheral vascular disease, as you
Right.
say, which is basically the flow of the blood to the legs.
Right, to the legs.
We can do special tests to identify if you have problems with flow, and also do procedures where we can minimally invasive or take little needles and catheters and open up the flow, like opening up clogged pipes. And
Wow, this is so interesting. How long has this interventional therapy, cardiology been around? A long
It's been
time?
on for a while. I do think, coming from New York myself, both Dr. Toussaint and myself,
Yeah.
we
Both
feel-
from West Indian. I keep saying that. Roots.
Yeah, he's more
Now,
American than I am. I
Did one of
guess.
your parents have a problem with stroke or heart disease?
well, like many African American people, my family has some strong diabetes and heart problems as well.
Yes.
Right.
So
It's also big in the Caucasian community, like the Denham Springs area, Walker.
Right. I was going to say, you've gone from mid-city, the
yeah.
underserved, mostly black area,
Yeah, and
to
then
a
I went-
pretty much all white area in Denham.
100%, 100%,
yes.
or maybe 99% of
Yes.
Caucasian.
Yeah.
And it's
It's
just-
number one for everybody in the world,
In the
heart
world.
disease, cardiovascular.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Killer, I mean, deaths when I
So
said that.
the disease process that is occurring in the legs, prevention of blood flow to the legs, amputation, is the same disease process that occurs in the heart, and it is the same disease process that occurs in the carotid artery that supplies the brain, and it is the same disease process that occurs here for strokes.
Show us a little bit down here,
Okay.
Doctor.
We have some good stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's do, this is stroke. This is really pretty cool because it actually shows you what happens with stroke. Let's say atrial fibrillation, which is an abnormal heartbeat in the body, related also to a lack of blood flow, significant hypertension. People get abnormal heartbeats. Once it's not beating in the same sequence or pattern,
The
the
rhythm.
blood clots.
Yeah.
It clots and it goes right up into, I don't know if it still has a little light thing. It goes right up into, the clot comes out through the heart, goes up the carotid artery, and causes a stroke.
Going up
And
to the
you-
brain.
Stroke,
Yeah,
yeah,
up
stroke
going
to
up
the
to
the
brain,
brain.
right? So, and we call it CVA.
Yeah.
This is devastating.
Cardiovascular accident.
Cardiovascular, CVA, that's
Yeah.
the correct terminology.
That's right.
And you can speak, you can walk, you can
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
If it's a small stroke,
TIA.
just a TIA, right? Nothing, you know, you might,
Transincidental.
just for 24 hours, you might lose vision.
Right.
But if it's a very catastrophic stroke, you're losing the ability to walk, you're losing the ability to think, you're losing the ability to speak. This is the exact same disease as blockages in the heart. Same disease, different organ, right? It's the same scenario. So let's say if you develop a plaque burden within the arteries of the heart, down here, it goes down, it blocks, it causes a heart attack. Same exact disease.
What tests would you recommend for people to get to determine how much plaque may be in their arteries?
sure. So first off, you need to see a cardiologist.
Right,
So
come to
we're-
you.
Come to us. We're happy to see you.
Right here on Florida Street.
Yes, and
That is really important. I just want 2 seconds because everybody say, I've seen my doctor. You're not going to get the same testing with a primary care physician as you get with a cardiologist. I mean, we have the test. Your primary care physician might cold, flus, etc. You're not going to get the same thing.
And
So
of
it's
course,
really
you're an
important
internal
for you to
medicine doctor
know-
before you're a
Right.
cardiologist.
Exactly.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes.
I'm sorry.
no,
No,
it's very
yes,
important.
yes.
But you know, a lot of it first depends on your symptoms.
Yeah.
You know, we take what the story that you tell us, and we determine the right test for you.
Right.
But to check to see the blockage that you may have in the arteries, a procedure called a cardiac cath, which we go with special catheters and check the arteries with pictures and contrast and dye, and we can see how much blockage or how much plaque
Right.
there is. And depending on how much there is, where the location is, we may recommend medicine. Say it's not too severe, we may recommend that you have a stent, which is a procedure I do. Or you know, if it's severe enough where it's not something we can fix right away, you may need to have surgery. But those are things that we look at and we discuss with the patients, and we try to prevent horrible things like having a heart attack from happening, or having a stroke, or losing a limb.
Now, on the other side, you also do pacemakers. When does the patient need a pacemaker usually?
So pacemakers are usually rhythm. We have a natural rhythm that we're born with. We have a natural pacemaker. Normally, it would extend in most lifetime, but if you have a blockage to the artery that is affecting the pacemaker, the heart may go slow. And that's when a pacemaker comes in. And we have a couple of samples.
Right.
And there are other things called defibrillators. If your heart is very weak or it's not functioning very well, you may need a defibrillator. And I have this, the bigger ones are defibrillators, and the smaller ones are pacemakers, and they're very small. So what a pacemaker does is actually a computer. It goes under the skin, and it paces your heart to the natural rhythm that you were meant to have. So normally 60 to 80, pacemaker criteria is less than 45. I did one 2 days ago. Some people are 30, and without it, you go to heaven.
Wow. Hopefully. If you got to go. If you got to go, hopefully you go. Yes, you go to heaven.
But one thing I wanted to say is that you need to screen for these things. It's just like when you're driving your car and your car is brand new, nothing is going to happen to it. It feels great. You're driving down the street, but if you don't go in and get it checked, you don't know if the oil is leaking, you don't know if there's a clog, you don't know if the carburetor or something. So it's the same thing.
Listen, we've got only about a minute left, y'all. Let's talk a little bit about how to keep your heart healthy, about eating, exercise. What should people do? So I was reading something about transcendental meditation helps release stress in women. Have you heard of that one before?
No, I haven't.
Meditation, I guess. Stress is a big culprit of heart disease, correct?
Yeah.
So anything to release stress can help you.
Right, small little things like taking a walk every day, you know, increasing your level of activity. You don't necessarily have to go to the gym for an hour, but if you can take a walk for 5 or 15 minutes, control your diet, decrease your salt intake, you know, so it's much
Stay
healthy
within
living.
a normal weight.
Yep.
Normal weight, BMI.
It's healthy living as you can, but everyone's bodies, everyone's genetics are a little different, and even if you did all those things, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you won't have a heart attack or a stroke. So you definitely need to keep with the maintenance.
Come see you and keep maintenance.
You know, Alan Thicke just passed.
I saw that. Alan Thicke, Robin
He didn't
Thicke.
go come get his screening.
He was 69 years old. Was playing ball with, I think, his grandson,
Correct.
Robin Thicke's son. Yeah, and had a heart
They don't
attack.
feel it.
Heart attack.
Yes.
They don't feel it.
Yeah, it's a silent killer, hypertension, heart disease, silent killers.
That's right.
Anything we want to say real quickly before we let you two go?
Well, we're located right here in Baton Rouge, 236 Wabash.
She has a block over here in Midtown Baton Rouge.
I have more of a wellness center.
Her own little medical center.
Mid-City, and we're here to serve you. We're right here in your backyard.
Well, we're very proud of you all.
As well as
Thank you
Denham
very
Springs, which is 8369 Florida Boulevard. So
Oh, you're still on Florida, all the
Still
way
on-
down.
just drive
Okay,
right down.
going down.
That's it.
Well, we're glad you're here and happy that you're here to serve us. And thanks for coming to Louisiana, Dr.
Thank you
Tucson.
very much.
Thank you.
Very nice meeting you.